Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a simple truth that could change your life if you truly understand it. Not just hear it, but absorb it. The truth is, you become what you think about, that's it. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But don't let its simplicity fool you. This idea is as powerful as gravity, and just like gravity, it doesn't care whether you understand it. It's working every day in your life, either for you or against you. Let me ask you something. What do you spend your time thinking about? Because whatever it is, success or failure, abundance or lack, health or sickness, that's the direction you're steering your ship. Your mind is a garden. The thoughts you plant are the seeds. Now here's the catch. Your mind doesn't care what you plant. It'll grow weeds just as fast as it'll grow flowers. Plant worry, fear, doubt, and you'll get a tangled, thorny mess. Plant discipline, hope, belief, and you'll get a life worth living. Let me tell you a quick story. You become what you consistently think about. This isn't just a motivational phrase. It's a principle, a law of life that quietly governs everything we do, everything we achieve, and everything we become. Thought is not passive, it's active. It's the first step in shaping your character, your habits, your decisions, and eventually, your destiny. What occupies your mind owns your direction. Let's take a moment to truly understand what this means. When you wake up in the morning, where does your mind go? Do you dwell on your problems, or do you think about your possibilities? Are you worried about what might go wrong, or excited about what could go right? Most people don't realize how powerful those first few minutes of thinking can be. They set the tone for the whole day, and over time, they set the tone for your life. Think about it like this. Your dominant thoughts act like a compass. They guide your actions, your responses, your attitude. You can't continuously think negative, defeated thoughts and expect a positive, successful life to show up at your door. That's like planting poison ivy and expecting roses. The seeds you plant in your mind will grow, whether you want them to or not. Your brain is a goal-seeking mechanism. It's built to move toward what it focuses on. If you keep thinking about debt, your mind will find ways to keep you broke. If you keep focusing on fear, it will amplify every reason to hold back. But if you consistently think about progress, growth, opportunity, your mind will begin to show you ways to move forward, even if the steps are small, even if the path isn't clear at first. Consistent thought pulls your life in the direction of your focus. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people working the same job. One spends their commute every day complaining in their head about the boss, about the traffic, about how they're underpaid and overworked. The other one uses that same time thinking about how they can improve, what skills they could learn, what kind of future they want to build. Same job, same hours, but within a year, 5 years, 10 years, those two people will be living in completely different worlds. One becomes bitter and stuck, the other becomes better and free. The only difference, their thinking. Now, consistent thought doesn't mean you never have a bad day. Everyone struggles with doubt. Everyone hears that little voice that says, you can't. But here's the key. What do you do with those thoughts when they come? Do you entertain them, feed them, make a home for them? Or do you recognize them for what they are? Just noise. And replace them with better thoughts. Thoughts that build you up instead of tear you down. Whatever you feed your mind becomes your mental diet. Feed it fear and negativity, and that's what will grow. Feed it strength, clarity, and purpose, and that's what will flourish. This is why you have to be intentional. You have to decide every single day what you're going to think about. Don't leave it to chance. Don't let the world or the news or your circumstances decide for you. Your thoughts don't just stay in your head. They spill into your words, your behavior, your habits. And once a thought becomes a habit, it starts to become your identity. That's why it's so important to trace the pattern back to where it started. If you don't like where your life is headed, ask yourself, what have I been thinking about over and over again? Because that's what you're becoming. Let me tell you something else. Repetition is what makes a thought powerful. A thought repeated is a thought reinforced. That's how beliefs are formed. So if you tell yourself every day that you're not good enough, that success is for other people, not for you, guess what? Your brain starts believing it. And once it believes it, it will do everything it can to prove it true. On the flip side, if you consistently tell yourself, I'm capable, I'm learning, I can figure it out, then your mind gets to work proving that too. It's not magic, it's mechanism. It's the machinery of the mind doing what it does best, following instructions. You don't have to think perfectly, you just have to think consistently. Over time, your dominant thoughts become your beliefs shape your behavior becomes your habits, and your habits carve out your life. It all begins with the seed of thought. That's why what you think about most is not just important, it's everything. Your mind is a garden. Plant wisely. That's not just a poetic metaphor. It's a blueprint for how your inner world functions. Your thoughts are the seeds, and your attention, your repetition, your emotions. They're the water, sunlight, and fertilizer. What you choose to plant will grow. What you neglect will wither. And what you allow, whether weeds or roses, will eventually take over the landscape of your life. Everyone is planting something, whether they realize it or not. Every thought you dwell on, every idea you entertain repeatedly, becomes part of the soil. And here's the tricky part. Your mind doesn't reject seeds. It doesn't filter out the bad from the good. It simply accepts what you put in and gets to work making it grow. Think about fear, and you'll grow anxiety. Think about resentment, and you'll grow bitterness. But think about gratitude, and you'll start to grow peace. Think about possibilities, and you'll begin to grow courage. The choice is always yours, but the process is automatic. People often walk around wondering why they feel so overwhelmed, so stuck, so cynical. But if you examine the seeds they've been planting, day after day, week after week, it becomes clear they've been feeding their mind with doubt, comparison, complaints, and scarcity. And what do you get when you sow those seeds? You get a life that feels limited, stressful, and full of frustration. Not because life is against you, but because your garden has been neglected or overrun by the wrong kind of growth. Let's say you walk past an empty lot in your neighborhood. Over time, if no one takes care of it, what happens? Do beautiful flowers start blooming on their own? No. Weeds take over, thorns show up, the space gets wild and unmanageable. That's exactly how the mind works. Leave it unattended, and the weeds of negativity, fear, and small thinking grow by default. It doesn't take effort for them to show up. It takes effort to keep them out. Intentional thought is your gardening tool. It's how you uproot what doesn't belong and plant what you want to grow. But this isn't a once-a-year job. It's not even once a season. It's daily, sometimes hourly. You have to be vigilant. You have to keep watch. Because every conversation, every article you read, every person you follow, those are all potential seed packets being opened in your mind. Are they sowing inspiration, or are they planting worry? Are they helping your garden grow or leaving it to decay? You also have to be patient. A garden doesn't bloom overnight. Just because you start thinking positively today doesn't mean everything in your life changes tomorrow. There's a lag between planting and harvest. That's where many people give up. They sow new thoughts for a week, maybe even a month, and when nothing changes right away, they go back to their old ways, but the garden is working, just underground. The roots are forming, the soil is shifting. Keep planting, keep watering, because what you nurture in your mind today will bloom in your life tomorrow. You can't fake this process. You can't pretend to be positive while secretly feeding worry on the side. Your mind knows the truth, and so does your life. What shows up on the outside is just a reflection of what's growing on the inside. If you want a garden full of peace, clarity, abundance, and growth, you've got to stop giving space to weeds like gossip, self-pity, and blame. Those might feel easy in the moment, but they're stealing sunlight from the things you really want to grow. Another thing to remember, sometimes, before planting anything new, you've got to clear out the old. Uproot some deep-rooted beliefs that no longer serve you. Maybe it's the idea that you're not smart enough, or that success is for other people. Maybe it's the thought that your best days are behind you. Those thoughts have grown strong because you've fed them for years, but with enough attention and effort, even the deepest roots can be pulled out. Once the soil is clear, you're free to plant again, this time with intention and care. Surround yourself with good gardeners too, people who are mindful of what they plant in their own minds, people who speak life, not poison. Your environment matters. If you're always around those who are complaining, doubting, and quitting, some of their seeds are bound to spill into your soil. Protect your garden, share it only with those who respect the process and contribute to the growth. It all starts with awareness. What are you thinking? What are you allowing? What are you repeating? Because whatever it is, you're planting it, and once planted, those seeds are growing. day by day, silently, consistently, into the reality you live in. Thoughts shape direction, direction shapes destiny. This is not just philosophy, this is cause and effect, plain and simple. Every life has a trajectory, and that trajectory starts in the unseen world of thought. Before you ever take a step, before you ever make a decision, before any action leaves your hand or word leaves your mouth, it was first shaped, guided, and initiated by a thought. That's how powerful your thinking is. It doesn't just describe your life, it steers it. Imagine standing at the edge of a long road. You can't see the end, but the direction you choose to take, left or right, will lead you to a completely different destination. One path may take you to success, peace, fulfillment. Another might lead you to regret, stagnation, confusion. Now here's the truth. You don't end up on either path by accident. You end up there because your thoughts have been walking ahead of you, carving out the road, pointing the way. Long before your feet move, your mind does. If someone spends most of their time thinking about what could go wrong, how life has let them down, or how they're not enough, what kind of direction do you think they're setting? They may not realize it, but their inner compass is pointed toward limitation, toward fear, toward avoidance. And when life presents them with a choice, whether to step forward or stand still, their thoughts already decided for them. They don't even realize the decision was made hours, days, even years ago, when a certain way of thinking became their default setting. Now take someone who's focused on growth. They're not perfect, they don't have all the answers, but they consistently think in terms of learning, adjusting, reaching. They believe that forward is the only way, even if it's slow. That person's thoughts are shaping a different direction. They face the same problems, the same unknowns, but their mind is aimed at progress, and because their thoughts shape their direction shapes the opportunities they see, the risks they're willing to take, and the resilience they bring with them. Over time, that direction begins to carve out a different kind of life. Your thoughts are like a GPS system, always calculating, always rerouting based on the coordinates you punch in. If the coordinates you enter are based in fear, anger, or hopelessness, don't be surprised if the path you travel feels heavy and confusing. But if the coordinates are hope, vision, purpose, then even when you hit traffic or take a wrong turn, your internal system finds another way to move you forward. It all begins with where your thoughts are pointing you. Direction is subtle, which is why it's dangerous to ignore. You don't feel the difference in the first few days. The person whose thoughts are set on fear and the person whose thoughts are set on faith might wake up in the same bed, go to the same job, talk to the same people. But check in on them 5 years later. There's a gap, a difference in results, in energy, in outlook, and in life. And it all started with thought, not action, thought. Action followed later, but thought paved the road. What makes this so important is that direction is slow and steady. You won't notice it in a moment, but you'll live in it over time, which is why you have to be deliberate about it. If you don't choose your direction, it will be chosen for you, by your past, your environment, or your emotions. But if you take the time to align your thinking with where you want to go, you start to shape your future. You begin to move, not in circles, not in frustration, but forward. Everything you experience externally begins internally. The breakthroughs, the breakdowns, the progress, the plateaus, it's all rooted in thought. Thoughts create patterns. Patterns create momentum, and momentum creates outcomes. You don't become successful and then start thinking successfully. It happens the other way around. You think successfully, daily, deliberately, sometimes against resistance. And then slowly, almost invisibly at first, your life starts to match the direction of those thoughts. This is why people can sabotage their own potential. If they achieve something great, but their thoughts are still anchored in doubt and unworthiness, eventually their direction will pull them back down to what they believe. The mind always tries to realign your outer world with your inner world. That's why true change doesn't start with hustle, it starts with thought. Before you build anything with your hands, you've got to build it in your mind. Before you can walk in a new future, you have to think in a new direction, and that direction, once chosen and followed, becomes the map that leads to your destiny. Negative thinking is automatic. Positive thinking is intentional. That's a truth that most people overlook, and yet it quietly influences how they experience life every single day. The human mind, left unchecked, will drift toward worry, fear, doubt, and limitation. It doesn't require effort to think negatively. You don't have to set reminders to feel anxious or insecure. That happens naturally. It's the default setting for many, not because they're broken, but because the mind's first job is survival, not success. If you were to wake up tomorrow and do absolutely nothing to guide your thinking, chances are your first thoughts wouldn't be about gratitude, potential, or growth. They'd probably lean toward what might go wrong today, what's missing, what you didn't do yesterday, or what's uncertain about tomorrow. That's the way the untrained mind operates. It looks for problems because problems could mean danger. And danger, according to your brain, needs to be dealt with first. It's a built-in survival mechanism that, if not managed, can dominate your perspective and steer your life in the wrong direction. Negative thinking comes with momentum. One thought leads to another. You think about a missed opportunity, then about what that says about you, then about how others might be succeeding while you're falling behind. Suddenly, a single thought spirals into a mindset. And from that mindset, you start making decisions, reacting to people, and interpreting situations in a way that reinforces the negativity. You begin to see the world not as it is, but through the lens of your own self, doubt or fear. The worst part, you might not even know it's happening. It feels natural, comfortable even, but it's a comfort that slowly chips away at your confidence and potential. Positive thinking, on the other hand, is a conscious decision. It's not about pretending everything is great. It's about choosing what to focus on. It's about deciding, moment by moment, where your attention goes. When something goes wrong, it's easy to dwell on it. It takes effort to find the lesson. When you feel uncertain, it's automatic to imagine the worst. It takes discipline to envision a possibility instead. That discipline doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from commitment, a commitment to shaping your mind before your mind shapes your day. It's important to understand that positive thinking isn't about being naive. It's about being empowered. It means you believe your response matters more than your circumstances. It means you recognize that while you can't control everything that happens, you can absolutely control how you interpret and respond to it. And that control, once claimed, is what builds confidence. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've trained yourself to handle the imperfect with clarity and strength. Think of your thoughts like a garden again. If you don't plant anything on purpose, weeds will show up by default. Negativity is the weed. It grows fast, takes over space, and requires no invitation. But positivity is the flower. It has to be planted, watered, nurtured, and even when it blooms, it has to be maintained. That's why mindset work is never one and done. It's not something you do once and forget. It's a lifestyle, a practice. You wake up, you check your thinking, and you align it with the kind of life you want to live. Many people resist this because they assume that thinking positively means ignoring reality, but the truth is, negative thinking distorts reality just as much, if not more. It filters your experiences, blocks your opportunities, and limits your courage. Positive thinking, when grounded in truth, allows you to see things clearly, not just as they are, but as they could be. And when you can hold that vision, you give yourself permission to act in alignment with it. Another thing to understand is that positive thinking doesn't eliminate challenges. It prepares you to face them. A strong mindset doesn't make life easier, it makes you stronger. It gives you perspective when things go sideways. It reminds you of your power when everything around you feels uncertain. It helps you respond instead of react. That's what makes it valuable. Not that it protects you from difficulty, but that it equips you for it. The real work is internal. You have to train your mind to question the negative thoughts instead of accepting them as facts. You have to learn to redirect your attention when it drifts toward fear. You have to build the habit of gratitude, of perspective, of possibility. It's a process. Some days you'll feel like you've mastered it. Other days you'll feel like you're starting from scratch. But the point is not perfection. The point is presence. Being present with your thoughts, aware of where they're going, and willing to guide them intentionally. Because left alone, your thinking will drift, and it will drift toward what's familiar. And for many, what's familiar is worry. That's why you don't leave your thinking to chance. You shape it, you direct it, and you guard it. Discipline your thoughts like you would your habits. Most people understand the importance of discipline when it comes to physical actions. They'll set a routine for exercise, for diet, for waking up early. They know that if they don't manage their time, their health, or their money, things get out of control. But what many fail to realize is that your thoughts need the same kind of structure, the same level of attention, the same daily commitment. Because your thoughts are the starting point of every habit you form and every outcome you experience, every single habit you have, good or bad, started as a thought, a decision formed in the mind, a belief repeated enough times to become behavior. That means if you want to change your habits, you can't just focus on the external routine. You've got to address what's driving it internally. What you think about yourself, your goals, your possibilities. That's the real foundation. And like any foundation, it has to be strong, stable, and intentionally built. You can't just hope your mind stays focused, just like you can't hope your body stays in shape without effort. Discipline in thought means you don't allow your mind to wander unchecked. It means you set standards for what you'll allow yourself to dwell on. If a thought doesn't serve your growth, your peace, or your purpose, it doesn't get to stay. That doesn't mean negative or unproductive thoughts won't show up. They will. But when they do, disciplined thinking means you don't entertain them, feed them, or make a home for them. You notice them and then you redirect. Again and again, until redirecting becomes your new reflex. Undisciplined thoughts are like leaving your front door open in a storm. Every gust of emotion, every fear, every piece of outside influence blows right in and makes a mess. You might not feel the damage right away, but over time, the clutter piles up. Clutter in the form of self-doubt, procrastination, anxiety. It clouds your decision-making, drains your energy, and slowly pulls you away from your goals. But when your thinking is disciplined, it acts like a filter. You still hear the noise, but you don't let it in. You hear the doubt, but you don't believe it. You feel the fear, but you don't surrender to it. Disciplining your thoughts also means thinking on purpose. That's different from just thinking positively. It means you decide ahead of time what kind of thoughts will shape your day. You set intentions. You reflect. You choose affirmations, not as clichés, but as mental anchors. You use questions to guide your focus. What am I grateful for? What am I building? What matters most today? This kind of thought work sets a tone. It builds a mental rhythm that, over time, becomes your internal compass. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that whatever shows up in your mind is truth, but not every thought deserves your trust. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. They come from past experiences, cultural noise, childhood programming, and sometimes plain old habit. Discipline means you examine those thoughts. You ask where they came from, whether they help or harm, whether they move you forward or keep you stuck. If they're not aligned with the person you're becoming, they get dismissed. Think about how athletes train. They don't just show up on game day and hope for the best. They practice daily with structure, repetition, and accountability. That's how your thoughts need to be treated. Daily conditioning, mental reps, and yes, you'll have off days, days when doubt creeps in, when fear is louder than vision, but those are the days when discipline matters most. Anyone can think clearly when life is easy. But disciplined thinking shows its real value when things are hard. It gives you focus when you feel scattered. It gives you direction when you feel lost. It gives you strength when everything in you wants to retreat. Another part of mental discipline is emotional regulation. Your thoughts and emotions are tightly connected. When you feel a surge of frustration, your mind wants to follow it, build on it, justify it. But if you've trained your thinking, you can pause. You can observe the feeling without becoming the feeling. You can think through your response instead of reacting on autopilot. That pause is powerful. It's where choice lives, and choice is the birthplace of growth. Like any discipline, this kind of mental training takes time. You'll slip up. You'll catch yourself drifting into old patterns. But every time you notice it and bring yourself back, that's a win. That's how mental strength is built, not in dramatic moments, but in quiet ones, in small corrections, in daily effort. You keep showing up, guiding your thoughts like a coach guiding a team, not with harshness, but with clarity and consistency. That's how you build a mind that works for you, not against you. A mind that doesn't just think, but thinks on purpose. Success begins in the mind long before it shows up in the world. That's not just a nice idea. It's a law of life. Everything we see, every invention, every breakthrough, every business, every piece of art, every transformation, started as a thought. Not as a plan, not as a goal, not as a result, a thought. An idea sparked in the mind of someone who chose to believe in it long enough to bring it to life. That's where success begins, and that's where it must be protected and nurtured if it's ever going to grow. If you want to change your life, you don't start with your circumstances. You start with your beliefs. Because what you believe shapes what you think shapes how you feel shapes how you act, and how you act shapes what you get. It all traces back to the mind, the thoughts you allow, the story you tell yourself, the vision you hold when no one else is watching. That's where the real work happens, before the first sale, before the first pound lost, before the recognition, before the breakthrough. It begins internally. The problem is, most people wait until the outside changes before they allow themselves to think differently. They wait for the promotion before they believe they're valuable. They wait for the relationship before they believe they're lovable. They wait for the result before they believe they're capable, but it never works like that. Life doesn't reward the delay of belief. It responds to the presence of belief. It responds to the internal decision to think like a success, to feel like a success, to walk like a success, before any of it has shown up externally. This isn't fake it till you make it. This is align it until you become it. Because if you don't believe in your vision before it's real, who will? If you don't carry yourself with confidence before the crowd claps, why would they ever start? If you don't speak your dream with conviction before it manifests, how will you stay committed through the setbacks? Every step forward requires mental ownership first. You have to claim success in your thinking before it can claim you in your reality. Success is not something you chase down. It's something you attract by becoming the person who's ready for it. And becoming that person starts in your thoughts. Do you think like a leader or a follower? Do you think in solutions or problems? Do you think in terms of expansion or restriction? That thought pattern will guide your choices, your habits, and eventually your outcomes. A poverty mindset can't hold onto abundance. A victim mindset can't walk in victory. You've got to make the shift first in your thoughts. This is why personal development is not optional if you want to grow. Because your mind is either working for you or against you. It's either building your future or reinforcing your past, and if you don't intentionally direct it, it will default to comfort, to doubt, to the familiar. Or even if the familiar is unhealthy, to succeed, you have to think above your current circumstances. That means thinking beyond the paycheck, beyond the routine, beyond the temporary. That means seeing what's possible even while living in what's limited. That takes vision, and vision is a product of thought. It's not enough to have a big dream. You've got to build the mental infrastructure to support it. You've got to have thoughts that match the level of life you want. You can't think small and live big. You can't think scattered and live focused. You can't think average and live extraordinary. Your thinking has to rise first. It has to stretch, deepen, sharpen. You've got to upgrade your mental software to match the future you're building. And that happens through repetition, through exposure, through intentional reflection. You don't become successful by accident. You think your way there. Success also requires emotional intelligence, and that begins with how you think about challenges. Most people think success means less problems, but the truth is, the more you grow, the bigger your problems become. The question is, do your thoughts grow with them? Do you meet resistance with panic or with poise? Do you crumble under pressure, or do you get clearer under it? That mindset is shaped not in crisis, but in preparation. You prepare your thinking daily so that when challenges come, you're already mentally equipped to rise. Your thoughts are the foundation, not the decoration. They don't just make you feel good. They determine the energy you bring, the language you speak, the posture you carry, and the actions you take. And those are the things that open doors, create opportunities, and move the needle in your life. Before success ever shows up in the bank account or the spotlight, it has to be real in your mind. Not once in a while, not only when things are going right, but consistently, intentionally, with faith, clarity, and purpose.